Can't get my fingers working right here. There we go. Our speaker today is Tia Renee, the most beautiful near-death experiencer I have ever seen. And she has a wonderful story to share with us. And she has great answers to questions that we will ask her. And take it away, Tia.
Thank you so much for that very kind and generous introduction, Dick. I appreciate that. I did not have a near-death experience. I had a shared death experience, which I'm going to share with you today. And I just want to say up front, please, if you have any questions, like Dick said, raise your hand. You don't have to wait until I'm done speaking. Sometimes we forget what questions we had. So if you have something arise in your head, just go ahead and raise your hand. I'm happy to answer any and all questions if possible. So my story, my spiritual journey began 21 years ago when I was 26 years old. I had a lovely husband, very in love with him. He was my very best friend that I ever had in my whole life. He was amazing. And we went out one day on the Las Vegas Strip. We lived in Las Vegas, and we were partying all day and having a good time. My brother was in town, and actually I was fighting with him. And so there's a moral to that, and that I bring that up. We say never leave people, what do they say? Not to treat everybody as if it's the last time you're going to see them. And you never really think that's going to truly happen to you, or at least I didn't. And in this case, it was true. So I have been very stressed out. Found out my dad had stomach cancer, and I was very stressed out this day. We just found out my dad was sick, and I was kind of taking it out on my husband. I was frustrated with him. I didn't speak to him all day. So we're having a good time. I'm hanging out with my brother and his wife, and my husband's there. And, he's hanging out with us too, but I'm not talking to him. So we got a room. My parents were watching my kids, and they said they wanted to go back up to, closer to home. So we went up to the hotel room. I was going to stay there with the boys, and I was feeling guilty for being so angry with my husband for no reason, really. He didn't do anything. Maybe I did something small that I blew out of proportion. And I apologized to him, and I gave him a big hug, and I said, why don't you go back out with my brother and you guys go have a good time? I'll just stay here with the boys, and you can go do your thing. So he did. And I'm very grateful that I got to apologize for him, because that was going to be the last time that I would be able to communicate with him while he was conscious, because my sister-in-law came and got me in a little while. It had only been maybe 10 minutes or so. And I was down in the oxygen bar doing oxygen because I had been drinking a little, not a whole lot, but a little. And I heard that was supposed to help. So the boys and I went down there, and they were kind of playing around with stuff. And my sister-in-law came and got me and tapped me on the shoulder, and she says, you have to go right now. Terry's been hurt. And Terry was my husband's name. And I thought, oh, maybe he, you know, punched something and hurt his hand or something. I didn't think he was really hurt. So she had a cell phone, and she gave me the phone. My brother was on it. It was in 2003. I didn't have a cell phone. And my brother said, he wouldn't tell me if my husband was okay. And I thought that was very strange. And that's when I started to panic. Like, how do you not know if he's okay, if Terry's okay? Like, you're with him, right? You can see that he's okay. Like, did he break his pinky? I didn't think it was anything serious. So I'm getting frantic, and I'm running to find my brother across the road at the casino next door. And he's still not letting me know anything that happened. And there's an ambulance off in the distance. We were outside. And it felt like I sat on the curb, and it felt like I sat there for an eternity. I didn't know what was going on with my husband. I didn't know where he was. There's this ambulance. Why aren't they bringing him if he's hurt? So I have all these questions running through my head, and I'm getting no answers. And then finally, they I see them wheel my husband across to the ambulance, and it's about 1,000 feet, 300 yards, something like that away. And I stood up and I started running because I yelled his name first, and he didn't look over at me. And he was always very comforting to me. Um, like I wanted to be by his side if we were ever at a party, and sometimes that wasn't possible. So if, I saw him from across the room, if we ever made eye contact, he would, smile, give me a thumbs up to comfort me and let me know that he was there for me. I wasn't alone because I had a little social anxiety. And he didn't look over at me and he didn't give me a thumbs up. And so I thought, okay, there's something wrong, something more wrong than I thought. And I started running, and the paramedics stopped me and they said, "You can't come any closer. You're too panicked. You're going to have to call a cab and meet us at the hospital." So I did that. My brother rode in the ambulance, and we sat in the hospital for another infinity. It felt like it was awful. Anyways, so he was in the hospital on life support for 5 days. And I had spent that time with him. On the third day, I needed some rest because I had been staying in the hospital. And there wasn't a bed in his room or anything. There was a chair. And it was very bright. It was a teaching hospital, the UMC in Las Vegas. And there was a lot of people in and out of the room all the time. He was in the very first room because he was the most severe case. So everyone that walked in and out of the trauma unit were walking by our room. I was hearing them talk. The doors were open. There's one wall was basically all windows and no lights out. So I was pretty exhausted, especially going through what I was going through. He wasn't awake. He was in a coma. And so on the third day, I decided I needed some rest. And I went to my brother-in-law's house, his brother's house, and decided I was going to stay the night there. So I slept that day, and the next day I woke up and I felt weird. I kept getting dizzy, and I thought maybe I was just stressed because that's a very logical explanation from, what I've been going through. But I had to sort of steady myself with my hands. I was getting very dizzy. Twice that happened. And then the third time I was sitting on the couch when this happened, and the dizziness didn't go away this time. And I had to lay down, and I felt like I was dying. And I told my brother-in-law, I said, I think I'm dying. And he called his mom. He was frantic and panicked, and he was like, "I don't know, what's happening." I didn't know what was happening. All I knew is that I had this panic overcome me that I was dying. And what first happened was the dizziness, and I lay down, and then I saw the TV was on, and I could see this clear circle of vision, just one little circle around the guy's face on the TV. I don't know who it was. It was some talk show. And then around that face, around that clear circle of vision, it looked like everything streaked back. Like I always explain it is if you ever watch Star Wars or Star Trek and they take off and they go warp speed, how the stars kind of just stretch back. It was like that, but the room stretched back. Um, and so this made me think that I was dying. I never experienced anything like this. And it sounded like everything was coming through a tunnel. All the noises that I could hear were very plasticky and echoey sounding, very strange. And I was very scared. And then all of a sudden, I was in two places at once. I was my husband in the hospital bed, and I was me laying on the couch as well. I was in both places at once. And I thought I had hallucinated that this happened to him, that it had really happened to me. And I was dying. I was the one in the hospital bed that was dying. Um, and it made me even more terrified. And I could feel he had so many friends that came to visit him. We were from the Atlanta area. And he probably had 50 people in the hospital lobby at any given point, of friends and family that had come to, be there and to support him and his family. So there was a lot of people there, and I could feel their thoughts. I could feel them thinking their emotions for me on the hospital bed. Poor her, she's dying. This isn't fair. She's so young. She's got a family. I could feel all of that. And it became very overwhelming, feeling their thoughts. And it was almost hearing them. Feeling is the right word, but it was like all the senses combined, experiencing their thoughts and emotions. And I knew that I was the one that was dying. Um, and so it sent me into an extreme panic attack. And that's what I thought it was. For 20 years, I thought it was just a panic attack until I started speaking to people who were more well versed on spiritual experiences, near death experiences, and shared death experiences. Did I find out that it was actually a shared death experience? And the reason I truly think that now, and I look back and how it all makes sense, is the next time that I went into the hospital room later that day, the energy just felt different. And I'll tell you, before this happened, I was just a very traditional, I guess, stereotypical American girl, right? I went to church, or I believed in Christianity. I wasn't going to church at the time, but I was a Christian. And, I went to work all week, and, had fun with my friends on the weekends, and then, did the whole thing over, trying to keep up with the Joneses. I had no spiritual thoughts, no outside the box thinking. I had no expansion of my mind, no beautiful spiritual experiences, nothing philosophical, not a philosophical bone in my body before this happened. So I just was very, this was so different to me. I had no idea what happened. So when I walked into his room and the energy felt different, it really hit me like I walked into a brick wall, because it was such a different feeling than I had ever experienced before in my life. And I kind of just wrote it off as I'm stressed. Maybe I'm going crazy or something like that, especially after the experience I just had. But I feel like now, or I know that his body had, or his soul, his energy had left that body at that time. And that's why I felt the energy in the room was so different, than it was the day before I had this experience. And physically, his body started falling apart at that time. Both of his lungs collapsed. He wasn't doing well at all. His body just started to break down, like one section at a time. His face was filling up with air from the ventilator. And then 2 days later, he was on for 5 days. They said I was either going to have to make the decision to take him off life support, or he was going to have some very severe surgeries. And nobody really felt like he was there anymore anyway. So we made the decision, the very hard decision, to take him off life support, even though I didn't want to do that. But then after he died, I started having more strange experiences. I would be able to communicate with him in a way, kind of. I remember, I was looking for the baby wipes because I had a 3 year old. We had a 3 year old baby and a 10 year old. And my 3 year old was going through potty training, and I couldn't find his baby wipes. And it was just, I don't know, shortly after my husband died. It was very new. And I didn't want to go to the store. I just was not feeling up to it to buy baby wipes. And I was at my wit's end, and I was just standing in the hallway, and I said, Terry, please show me where the baby wipes are. And it was like something took over my body, and I walked right over to where they were. I picked up a blanket, and they were under the blanket. And so I was like, okay, that's different. How did that happen? And then I started having out of body experiences. I woke up one night, and I was laying on the side of the bed instead of on top of the bed, and the whole room was vibrating. It was this intense, super strong vibration like I've never felt before. And it wasn't just the room was vibrating, I was vibrating with the room. It was like I was one with the room and we were vibrating together. The vibration made us up, is what it felt like. And there was this beautiful golden light all through the room, and it was just this dim light. And there was this gold glitter just floating everywhere. And I was just taken aback. I was overwhelmed with the beauty of it. And I had such a strong feeling that my husband's presence was there. I could feel that he was there, and that you could see outside the door. The door was shut to the hallway, and the closet door was shut, and you could see the outline of a bright gold light coming through the doors as well. And this glitter was just everywhere. And it's, if you ever seen dust in a beam of lights, that's what it looked like, but it was just glittery and beautiful. And I felt so much calm and peace. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I didn't know what was happening. All I thought was that he had come back to me to show me that he still existed, because I was really struggling. And it didn't cure me. I really struggled for many, many years, more than a decade. I had a very difficult time living without him. But this at least showed me that he still existed. Well, so I didn't know, I never heard of an out of body experience. I didn't know what that was. I thought it was some visitation, but I wanted to get more details. So I told my parents about what happened, and they were very, very, very Christian, by the book. And so they had a little kind of intervention with me with some people from church. And they told me that I need to stop doing what I'm doing immediately, or it could be very dangerous for me. I could go crazy, lose my mind. And I tried to explain to them that I wasn't trying to do anything. These things were happening to me. I wasn't reaching out for these experiences. They were just coming to me. But nobody seemed to understand that I knew. So I reached out to a spiritual church in Las Vegas, and that's when they told me. I went there and I met them, and I opened myself up right away in the first visit because I was so desperate to find out what was happening to me. And they suggested that I might be having out of body experiences. And then I thought they were crazy, because you can't have an out of body experience. How do you exist out of your body? That I never heard of that. But I thought I would look into it a little bit deeper. And so I went home, and we had just gotten a computer, maybe, I don't know, a year, 6 months, something like that before. And I didn't really know how to utilize searching for information on the computer yet. So I sat down in front of it and I just typed into whatever search engine it was, near death experience. And there was this Yahoo group, I think it was, and people were talking about their out of body experiences, and it was very similar to what was happening to me. So that kind of opened me up and led me down this rabbit hole that hasn't yet ended. I haven't reached the end yet. I've still been journeying down this rabbit hole for 21 years. But that also opened my eyes up to near death experiences. And I found a book by Dr. Moody. I used to go to Borders nearly every day after work. There was one by work, and pick up a book or two, and I would pour through them because I needed to know. I needed to know my husband existed, no longer believe it. Christianity is wonderful. I don't want to say anything bad about Christianity. But it was no longer fitting my needs. I needed to know instead of believe. So I was reading everything I could find on life after death and spirituality. And I came across a book by Dr. Moody called Life After Life, I believe is what it was called. And I never heard of near-death experiences. My whole paradigm has shifted. My world has opened up. My mind has been cracked wide open. I'm pouring all of these experiences and knowledge and wisdom into my brain. And it's just, I can't get enough of it. So I read Dr. Moody's book in probably a matter of hours. as fast as I could possibly read it. And I was like, holy smokes, I can't believe this is happening. And I haven't heard of it. Why doesn't the whole world know about this? Um, I emailed Dr. Moody when I was done with the book and just to tell him a little bit about my experience. And he emailed me back and invited me to come to his home in Alabama. And I did. And I met him and I got to sit in his psychomantium. And it was really a great honor for me and just an amazing experience. He's one of the most patient, loving, caring, most beautiful men I've ever met in my whole life. He's definitely a gift from God or the universe or source or the creator, whatever word that you use. Dr. Moody is a gift to this world, for his beautiful personality and the research that he's done, as is everyone here. Dr. Moody is not alone in his work, and I am so grateful for everyone that does this, that tries to get the word out that we are timeless beings, that go on, that death isn't what we may have thought it was, when we were growing up or what we were taught. And so everyone here is just a part of that. And I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. But I had many, many, many more spiritual experiences afterwards. The near death or the out of body experiences continued for 15 or 16 years. I continued having them just randomly. And I guess, does anybody have any questions? I can talk about some more of the experiences I had, but I guess we'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions first.
Okay, we're going to entertain questions here, and Carol has one. I'm going to put the camera on Carol so that she can be seen and heard. Go ahead. This is Tia.
Oh, Tia, sorry. Did you ever truly make contact with your husband after he passed? You don't talk about any interaction afterward, but he was okay. And that's wonderful. But did you ever really establish a relationship with him on the other side?
I had dream visitations, many dream visitations from him, that were definitely visitations and not dreams. If anyone's ever had a dream visitation, you know that it's completely different than a normal dream. You feel like you are there, and you're there. But I also made a makeshift psychomantium in my home afterwards, and I did see him come through the mirror one time in the psychomantium. It took a very long time, probably a couple months of me practicing daily with the psychomantium before I could see him. But now I have constant communication with him. I can think of him and he's there, and I can ask him at any point in time for a sign and he will give it to me 100%. And I feel like he does speak to me. I feel like I've gotten to the point where I've been able to relax my mind enough and, release some of those stringent beliefs that I had that are so ingrained in my mind and my brain. And I've been able to relax that a little bit over the years. It did take me a very long time, even after I had spiritual experiences. And I do have communication with him. It's not like I hear his voice, but I know when it's him. And I can ask for a sign and he'll give me a sign. And I can ask for a specific sign and he'll give me that specific sign. So yes, in a way, not a relationship like you have here with someone on earth. We don't go and have coffee together, but he's with me always. And I know that I feel him. All I have to do is think about him and I feel him. I feel his presence. And sometimes he comes to me first. I don't think about him. He comes to me. And maybe he's thinking about me from the other side. And that's, maybe it's the same way for him. I'm giving him signs that I'm getting his communications or that I feel his presence. I feel like it's a two-way thing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I
All right.
mean, you're intertwined. So
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Jennifer,
Hi, Tia. Great to see you. We haven't talked in a while.
Yes. How are you, Jennifer?
Good. I loved your wedding photo. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, what is psychomantia? Is that what you said? I've never heard that before. Can
So,
you? Yeah.
yeah, Dr. Moody has a book, I think, exclusively about the psychomantium, and it's I'm not going to explain it as well as, he could probably
Yeah.
explain it, but he did a lot of research of ancient techniques to scry or tell the future, reach out to past ones, people who have passed on to the other side.
Okay.
And, he found that the ancient people had techniques that they used to induce these experiences, even to be able to tell the future. And this is where the crystal ball comes from, like looking into a crystal ball to be able to tell the future. It came from
Sure.
the same kind of concept as the psychomantium. And the psychomantium is where you gaze into a dark reflection, not really a dark reflection, no reflection, but a reflective surface. So what he has is a mirror that's angled away from you. And you
Yeah.
sit like low down to the floor, and it's angled up so you can't see your own reflection, and it's in a dark room with just a little kind of nightlight, tiny little nightlight. And
Okay.
you look into the mirror, and then you will see visions.
Okay.
And I didn't see one when I was at his house, but I did see one, like I said, afterwards. I made a makeshift psychomantium, not nearly as professional as his, and it wasn't as dark as his. So I just want anyone to know if they do, read
Sure.
his book about the psychomantium and they decide that they want to make one, it doesn't have to be as perfect as he describes it.
Yeah.
Mine certainly wasn't. It definitely was not. And I still saw my husband, and it was more than just a vision. I didn't see him in the mirror. He actually came out of the mirror and hovered over
Wow.
me and
Oh my
touched
gosh.
yeah, he touched my arm and I could feel it. I got goosebumps on my arm.
That's
So
incredible.
it was more than just seeing something in a reflection.
That's incredible. I actually don't, I got rid of all the mirrors in my house because I see things in them. So I
Hmm.
got rid of all my mirrors. But do your kids see anything? Do they see him?
No, so it it was a very tragic experience for them. Um, and it was very difficult for them to talk about it. So my son, the 3-year-old, he doesn't remember my husband, and that's now a huge trauma for him because he doesn't even remember his dad, who loved him so much. It's not like he left us; he was killed. So that's a big thing. And then my 10-year-old at the time, he kind of went inward and he didn't want to talk about anything to do with
Yeah,
my husband. It was a very traumatic time for
sure.
everyone. And I just kind of let them be who they needed to be. I didn't force them to speak about it, and they never really wanted to. So I don't know if they did or not. But I know
Sure.
my mom did, and my husband's dad did. My husband's dad was an extreme atheist, as was
Oh,
my husband.
okay.
And he said one day he was laying in his recliner and he could smell the hospital smell. He had a very distinct smell to him when he was in the
Mhm.
hospital, and he
Yeah.
smelled that. It overcame him and it was very strong. And so to me, that was my husband coming back to him. And then my
Wow.
mom said she actually saw him in her living room. She was sitting in a chair and she saw him in her living room. And she said, "Why did you have to leave? Everyone is so upset, and everybody's distraught. Why'd you have to go?" And he said, "I'm so sorry. A baby had to be born." And
Oh,
so this was right after he had died. And
Yeah.
then 4 years later, I gave birth to my daughter. I had a daughter. And so my mom thinks that maybe for whatever reason he had to go so my daughter could be born. Um, I don't know.
That's incredible. I'm so sorry for what you went through. And I know that when I lost my dad, he was my whole world. And my life was a wreck. And I know your strain and your stress, and I'm sorry for that. But um, yeah, I'm learning still as probably you are. And thank you for your story. It's very touching.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's good to see you.
You too.
And another time, right after he died, this store that I used to work at was having like a little event, and the ladies that worked there, they invited me to just kind of get out of the house and go have a good time. They were serving like little champagne and hors d'oeuvres and stuff, and they were having a psychic, and I went and made a fool of myself because I just cried the whole time. I probably stayed like 10 minutes. I couldn't handle it. But the psychic that was there, she asked me if I was pregnant. I think it was 2 weeks after my husband had died. And I said, no, I'm not pregnant. And she said, I think that you're going to have a daughter. And I just blew it off and never really thought about it until later when I had a daughter. And then I wish I could remember who the psychic was. She had asked me, she said, please contact me um, outside of this. You know, she gave me her phone number and asked me to call her later. And I never did. And I should have. I wish that I would have.
Yeah,
But I didn't really believe in that stuff yet because I thought it was just
sure.
woo woo. You know, I didn't know,
Yeah,
yeah, this was the beginning of my spiritual experience. So I just kind of blew it off. And then when I had my daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, she knew something.
oh my
Um,
gosh. That's incredible. When that psychic stuff happens to me, it just blows me away. But I don't ever try to push it. But when my dad died, I always knew about paranormal, and I had a lot of experiences. But in the hospital room when he died, I went over to the sink to wash my hands, and there was a big mirror, and I looked in the mirror, and my dad was hovering over the bed looking at me, and I was just like destroyed. And I don't talk about that very often. It's very personal to me, but yeah, the hospital's a big deal for me too. So yeah, go through.
oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I know you,
Sure.
it's hard to talk about, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Do we have another, do we have another question or comment from anybody in the room? Petra wants to hear more about your out-of-body experience.
So,
Anything? Can I put the camera on you, Petra? And then you could ask about the specifics of that question?
No, not just one of other experiences that you've had. And the growth and what you're feeling and that sort of thing. Your abilities to sense spiritual realm. I'm not sure what's going on.
Could you
well, I'm sorry.
could you describe any of the specifics of your out-of-body experiences, where you
So,
go and how that happens?
sure, I've had so many out of body experiences, more than I could even recount. Not all of them are very big, huge, full blown experiences. Most of them are where I leave my body and I'm still in my room. I can look at my own body. One time I left my body and my ear got stuck to my other ear. So I was looking down, like side eye at my cheek and I could see my face. And that was a little bit disturbing to be that close to my own skin looking at it, my face. You've never seen your own face, you know? So it was really very strange. And my feet had lifted up. It was like my ear was the only thing that was keeping me connected and held down to my body. My feet lifted up and the ceiling fan was on. And as soon as I thought about the ceiling fan, it kind of shocked me. I was like, oh my gosh, the ceiling fan's gonna chop off my legs. I went back into my body, which is a ridiculous thought. A ceiling fan couldn't chop off your legs, but that's what I thought. And at that same near death experience, I mean out of body experience, I saw this. Um, it was like like a wrought iron cutout of a beetle on the wall. That's what it looked like. Um, and I've always wondered what that meant. So if anyone has any ideas, like like the Egyptian beetle, but I don't know. I saw that. And then there was another time where I was laying in my bed and I started lifting up. And I remember specifically my toenails getting closer, my vision looking at my toes, and I could see my toes closer and closer. I was paralyzed at first, and I heard these voices coming up the sidewalk outside my house. And I was like, oh, my dad had my boys. And I thought they were coming. My dad was bringing my boys back. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get up and answer the door. And he's got the boys, and I couldn't move. And so I'm struggling and struggling to move. And then I start sitting up without my body. And that's when I remember seeing my toes, and I could hear the voices. And instead of just talking like they were off in the distance, they yelled something. It was like, she's out or she's up, one or the other. And they started running towards me. I heard the footsteps running full speed towards me. And then when they got to my bedroom door, they went right through my front door. They were outside. They went through my front door and then to my bedroom door. And as soon as they got to my bedroom door, boom, I slammed back down into my body. I don't know if it was too shocking to me. I don't know if maybe they had something to do with putting me back in my body. I don't know. But that was an interesting experience. And then one time, it felt almost like a fever dream. I wasn't sick, but I was in and out of my body all night. I would wake up for a few seconds and I'd be standing by my dresser looking out the window at the moon. And then I'd wake up again and I'd be in my body laying down. And then it was back and forth all night. And I was like, this is crazy. And then finally I realized, okay, I'm having out of body experiences. And when I realized that, then I just lifted straight up out of my body like I was standing up from a laying position. And then I looked up at the corner of my room and I started flying towards that. And it was again like the warp speed, everything, the room stretched back. And I was there after I saw the room stretch back. And I say instantly, and the room stretched back. It was like there was time and there wasn't time at the same time. I was instantly there, but I still had the vision. I don't know how to explain it better than that. And then I started lifting up, slowly just going through the ceiling. And my daughter's room was above me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to spy on my daughter. And then boom, I went back into my body. And then a couple nights, either before or after that, that was one other thing about that is the moon. When I looked out the window at the moon, when I was out of my body, this moon would dial in on me and it had lights around it, red lights, like it was a camera recording, and it would focus in on me like a camera lens focusing when I would look out the window. It was like, oh, the moon noticed me and focused in on me. But then within a few nights before or after, I can't remember if it was before or after this, I was laying in my bed and I heard footsteps again coming across the house, and I thought it was my boyfriend. And I was facing the window, which was my back to the door. And so someone came in through the door, which I thought was my boyfriend. It wasn't a big deal to me. I wasn't looking. I was wide awake. I had just gone to bed, and I could hear the TV in the living room, and someone laid in the bed next to me and put their arm around me. And as soon as, you can feel someone get in the bed with you. And as soon as they put their arm around me, it was like I had this vision in my mind's eye, like my third eye or however, but I could see who this being was in my mind. And it was just a human shape, no, defining features, no facial features, no, any kind of body features, just a human shape. Male or female, it was neither. And no hair. And it had all this beautiful, energetic, brightly colored energy patterns swirling all over its skin like it was electric. And it was like paisley, but not, just the shapes of paisley, not like the intricate details, just the large kind of teardrop shapes. But it was swirling all around on its skin, everywhere, its body, its torso, its arms, its face, its head, everywhere. And I was like, super shocked. I wasn't scared. It was just like, what the heck is this? And I turned to look at this being, and there was nothing there. So that was, I don't know if that was an out of body experience, or I don't know what that was. Um, but it was very interesting nonetheless. And then I had another out of body experience, which was like a really full blown out of body adventure where I was laying in bed again. And often when I have an out of body experience, there is this terrifying feeling for me, and I really try to fight it before it starts because it's so overwhelming. It's like there's this vibration going through me, and at the same time it sounds like there's a train running through my head. It's so loud, and it's not a nice sound. It's very like a painful sound, and this vibration is very intense. And so I always try to fight it off. I'm like, I want to have an out of body experience, but when it happens, I'm like, okay, not this time, next time. Okay, I'm going to fight this one off. But sometimes it doesn't work, and then I'm overtaken and I'm out of my body. And this was one of those times, and I was overtaken. I was like shot out of my body like a slingshot to the foot of my bed, and I was like, okay, now I feel good. I felt amazing. There was no weight. I was just this little tiny point of consciousness. I wasn't even any size or anything else. I was just a point of consciousness. And I thought, okay, well, since I'm out of my body, let's see if I can fly. And as soon as I thought that, I started lifting up, and I went through the ceiling, and I could see there was a piece of paper crumpled in the attic and dust in the attic. And then I went up through the roof and looked down at the roof and was looking down at the whole neighborhood. And I was really up high, and the sky was just a beautiful orange and purple everywhere, like a sunset, but all over the entire sky, orange and purple, bright orange and bright purple, kind of like that orange that's over here on my shoulder, and a bright, bright purple. And I was intrigued, so I said, okay, let's just fly around. And I started flying up and down and all around like a roller coaster. It was so much fun, and I could feel the adrenaline almost when you would go down. It was so much fun. I never wanted it to end. And it was like I was in a stale slice of time. There was no life there. There was no people, there were no animals, there was no wind. It was like a stale slice of time or something. Like, I don't know, maybe the past or the future. I don't know, but there was no life or action or anything going on there. It was just that I could observe. And I was just going around like a roller coaster, flying up and down around trees. And then I got to this, I could see a city off in the distance, and I thought it would be really fun to go explore this beautiful building that I saw. It was a really tall, high rise. And I started going over there, and it was like I couldn't go any further. I was hitting some sort of barrier, nothing that I could see, and I couldn't feel it. But I just couldn't move any further. And then boom, I was right back in my body. And I was so excited because this was like my very first adventure out of the body. And that was a lot of fun. And that was probably one of my later, that was maybe 14 years ago. I guess mid out of body experiences. Most of my out of body experiences consisted of me just rising up out of my body for a few seconds, being able to look around, realize that I'm out of my body, um, maybe see myself, maybe see my partner, or anyone else that was in the room. My daughter sometimes was, in her little crib. Um, but I didn't have a whole lot of like big adventures, like Bob Monroe or some of the bigger ones that you hear about. But I did have a few, and I definitely had enough to show me that we exist regardless of our bodies. And that was what I needed. I needed to know that my husband still existed, even though his body was no longer here. Um, that was what I needed to know more than I existed, without my body. I didn't care about me. I wanted to know that he still existed. And that was the information that I got from those out of body experiences. Source or creator, God, universe, whatever terminology you want to use, it all means the same to me. It doesn't matter. This loving energy knew that I was struggling and wanted to comfort me and show me that we do not need our bodies to exist, and that we are timeless beings, and that my husband is still around and I will be with him. I'm never separated from him, like I was talking about earlier. He is with me. I just needed to let go of those pieces of my mind that were preventing me from knowing that or realizing that or experiencing that. And that's not easy because it was a lifetime of programming. Um, but all these experiences really did help to show me that he's still there and I will exist outside of time. There is no death as we know it. And so started I struggled, like I said, I struggled for a very long time, and I wanted to do something to help because I had gotten so much help from the near-death experience community, starting with Dr. Moody, and then I would watch the videos every single night as I was falling asleep. I would listen to a near-death experience. It brought me so much extreme comfort. I don't know if I could have gotten through life without these experiences. So, for each and every one of you out there who have had a near death experience and you've shared it with the world, you're doing so much good. You are helping to heal the world. Maybe you won't ever know the change that you make in people's lives, but you're saving lives and you're changing the world. So I'm so appreciative for everyone who shares not just their near death experience, but their spiritual experiences as well. So about a year ago, well, in January, late January, I was kind of sitting around and I had always had this kind of nagging feeling in the back of my head that I needed to do something to give back. I wanted to help people in some way. And so in late January, I had this weird sensation come over me. And it was like I was in a trance almost. I was sitting on the couch and I remember every detail. And I couldn't focus on anything except this thought in my mind to start my podcast. It just kept me in this, I was like hypnotized by this thought that I need to start this podcast. And I was talking with this, I don't know, arguing with myself, or if there was God giving me information, I don't know, but I was having like this little conversation with a voice in my head, and I was saying, I don't know how to do that. Public speaking is one of my biggest weaknesses. And when I've had job interviews in the past and they ask you what your biggest weakness is, I've said public speaking. I did not enjoy public speaking. It made me very nervous, and I just tried to avoid it at all costs. And so when this voice was telling me that I needed to start a podcast, I thought, this is crazy. I am not doing that. There is no way I'm going to be able to speak on the internet to people. And I said, I don't know how. And then the voice said, you just do it. And then I was like, how am I even going to get people to to talk to. I don't know how to do that. I'd never made a video. I've never posted anything on YouTube. And this voice just said, "Don't you trust me?" And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm going to just trust. I'm going to trust and see what happens. And maybe I'm crazy. And this voice is me, or maybe I'll never know though if I don't trust and do it. So I said, okay, I'm going to do one thing as a step forward to creating my podcast. And then it was like I fell down a hill. I took that one step and it was just doors opened and I was rolling through this experience. And I knew right then that I had a calling, that the God had called me, or the universe had called me. This was the one of the things that I was supposed to do, to give back. And so that's what I'm doing now. Is I have this little podcast, and it's been an intensification of my spiritual journey. I've met so many amazing people. Jennifer has been a guest on my podcast, and I have just met the most wonderful and amazing people. And I'll tell you, it's so much different for me to be able to speak with someone face to face, kind of, on Zoom, but more face to face than if I'm just watching a video. It's almost like we connect, our energy connects, and it intensified my experience. And I feel like I have these big downloads of information. Every person that I meet, every person that I talk to has so much value to provide, not just for me, but for the whole world. Every single one of my viewers that watches my videos now and in the future. And so it's been a great blessing for me to be able to start to give back to this community that helped me heal so much. And I'm also an IANDS group leader in Atlanta now. And we have monthly meetings where we have a speaker, and it's just been an incredible journey. And I'm ever so grateful for IANDS and everyone involved in IANDS, and for YouTube for being able to share these experiences, for being able to watch others' experiences. And the world has definitely changed since I was a kid. It's grown so much bigger and smaller at the same time, because now we can connect with people across the world on the computer and the internet, and we're learning so many things that we wouldn't have learned before. So it's a blessing. I'm very grateful to be here for it.
Right, we want to entertain any other comments or questions. Bob has a question or comment. Just a minute, I will put the camera on Bob.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Bob.
So listen, thank you very much for sharing what you did. It was quite a journey you've been through, and it's a very lonely experience to go through all that. And when you start, it's like, where the hell are we going? And am I crazy? So you really come out good on the other side, I think. And so I want to ask you, since you've kind of been transformed here now, have you journeyed into astral travel at all, or have you thought about that, or known about that, or talked about that?
Have I what now with the astral travel? I'm sorry.
Astral travel, soul travel, and Moody talked about it, and there's lots of books out on what they call astral projection or soul travel. And to get to that point, you're kind of like at that point now to really be able to transcend even where you are now. And I don't do it, but I had I'm a eye doc. I had some patients that regularly did it, and it was pretty illuminating. I think Dr. Moody would talk about that too.
I would love to be able to astral travel on demand. I think that when I had that big experience where the sky was purple and orange, that would be like an astral travel. I think it might have been like an astral realm, because like I said, it was different than the physical realm, not in the way that it looked, but the way that it was energized. I don't know. But I would love to be able to do that. I have not been able to induce an out of body or an astral projection on my own. I've tried and I can't. They are just random, and they happen to me on whenever I guess I'm supposed to have one, but I can't induce one on purpose. Unfortunately, I wish I could.
Okay, thank you.
Right, other questions or comments? Cypress has a question. Could you come up and sit here so we can see you and hear you?
Hello.
Hi, Cypress.
Hey, thank you for sharing your experiences. As far as OBE, so I do mainly lucid dreaming and sleep paralysis. I've been doing it over 25 years. My question is with OBE, have you ever been in a place where you feel unwanted or being a void? What I mean by a void is a place where there's nothing. You're just stuck. And that's what I'm trying to find out, because I've been there several times and I just don't know what to do.
I haven't, not in an out of body experience. I've never been in a void, but I did have a void experience in a dream one time that felt very lucid. It was like, I was unconscious for an eternity, and then I realized that I existed, and it like I bloomed into existence right there, and I was floating, tumbling through this void. And then I started to be able to hear voices, um, like coming from far away, and then there was this red glowing light. But it was a dream, and as soon as it got too intense, where I started to really realize my existence, I woke up. So I was able to get out of it that way, but not in an out of body experience. But I would have called that a lucid dream. That
Yeah,
one.
that's why I don't do OBEs, because I'm kind of afraid of it. I don't know if it's more of an astral or whatever, because I've gone to places where I feel like I'm just being drained and sucked, like my soul. So I just like try to snap out of it, and I don't really try it. Um, I don't know what that is, and yeah, wanting to meet some more people that experience that area. Um, so
Just a moment. Does anybody else have a response for Cypress on the void or on how to protect himself from being drained of energy? Dan and Carol. Let me ask Dan first, or Dawn.
I've had a lot of out-of-body experiences. I used to do it all the time, you know. And the way to get out of your body, you know, is you can't go straight up, because it's like your physical body and your soul body, they're like two magnets together. You know, there's a strong attraction that keeps you in the body. But like two magnets, if you go sideways, you can pull them apart easily. So what I did was, I would wake up, you know, during the night, for myself suggestion, I would wake up, but I don't move the body. And then I would use my will to go sideways, you know, like say go to the left, and try to go straight up. And I would use it to slip out. And I told a lot of people that they can do it. The danger of that is, I found out, if you stay out too long, your physical body depends on your soul body for energy to stay alive. So if you stay out too long, you know, you might have trouble getting back into your body, you know, when you want to. Normally, you get pulled back after you've been out so long. Like you had that experience, you know, when you were trying to go someplace and then you suddenly got pulled back. That was because your body's been deprived of energy by your soul being out of it. So, you know, if you can't get back into it or integrate with it, you know, then it's like dying, you know. I mean, really dying and separating. So I've had that experience of getting into my body, but I can't reintegrate with it again. So that's why I stopped doing that, you know, so I haven't done it for a long time. But, it's interesting to do that, because I could go out in space, look at the earth, and, go all over the place, and a lot of experience. So, it's good for that to see that. So, that's, that's my experience.
All right, thank you, Dawn. You didn't mention the silver cord.
Yeah, there's a cord that connects you, between your soul and your body, that kind of stretches, when you're gone, when you leave. And that's what pulls you back, that cord pulls you back, once you've been out so long.
Thank you, because Tia wondered how she said she couldn't get out of her body spontaneously. She couldn't do it on her own. She had to, it happens to her, but she's not able to make it happen. So that helped, but that doesn't answer the question about that Cypress had about the void and how to protect himself. And I wonder if anybody, Carol had a comment.
Well, kind of.
The Hindus talk about the void, and it's open potential, which you can steer in any direction in terms of your own thinking and your own abilities. It's just energy, but it's quiescent until you put a label on it.
All right, thank you. Another way to describe it is the womb of creation. So Cypress, if you're in that dark place, you could just think about what you'd like to create, and that will happen, because that's what happens there. Now, Dawn had another comment.
What could be happening as far as the void is, when you are like one with God, God is like dark. It's dark, beautiful darkness, light is not God, well, people don't know that, but it's a beautiful darkness, So it could be that you reach that state of being, one with God, when you go through that tunnel, on the other side, you go into this accessible way, and, I can talk to you, but God doesn't have a form or something, that can talk to you and speak to you and show you things.
Well, Don, what do you do with the many reports from near-death experiences that they saw God as a brilliant light?
Well, they're saying light, but that's not the essence of God. That could be a creation of God, or God showing himself in that kind of form.
Okay.
But God, God creates light, but God is not light. That's my opinion.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody have a comment about? Yes, go ahead, Cypress. You had a response.
So yeah, that's really interesting, because my first NDE was, I was going up and up. I was at a party, and I drank too much and everything else. And not to go deep into it, but basically, I was in that void because there was something inside me telling me, like I couldn't see who was telling me to do stuff, but it was just around me telling me, go ahead, come on, let's go, follow me, whatever, come with me, or what. I was like, no, it's not time for me to go. I got so much things to do. I saw the life passing me, and like, I apologized to so many people during that time. I was in tears, everything, but it was like, I don't know how long I was there, but and then all of a sudden there was nothing, because I kept rejecting it. I was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I got so much things to do over here. I'm still young. I'm not ready. And then all of a sudden it was just dark.
Okay. Dawn had another comment.
Yeah, well, there's three parts to God, there's this oneness part. And then there's love, and then there's like the Holy Spirit. The oneness part of God is like love. Love is more light. So people that experience God in the light form, they're experiencing this love aspect of God. So,
Jennifer had a comment. You have to unmute, Jennifer, so we can hear you.
Sorry. Um, as far as I'm concerned, if anything happens to me, whether it's in a dream, OBE, or anything while I'm sleeping, I know that I need to have that positive energy and work on it prior to going to sleep. I know that aligning the chakras aligns your energy, and it keeps more positive vibes around you. It's like getting ahead of it before it occurs. And if you're not on top of your, at least for me, emotions, and remaining positive, and kind of speaking to the universe, spirit, and at least helps me to get clearer connections or understanding of what is happening while I'm sleeping, whether it's somebody visiting me or just going ahead. Thank you.
All right. I wanted to comment about protection. I've talked with a lot of psychics who are into healing, and many others who talk about surrounding yourself with the vision of light and love. And this is a protective barrier. And you could just create it yourself with the power of your mind. You just imagine light and love around you. My routine, which I practice at Strangers No More, is to raise my hands and say, to the glory of God, I welcome the love light into my being, and I anchor it in the earth so that I am an example or an expression of the love light in this space-time continuum. And then I extend with my arms the love light around me, and it's a barrier. Only goodness can happen. Lowell Smith once gave us an affirmation: I surround myself with a robe of light consisting of the love, power, and wisdom of God, not only for my own protection, but so all who see it or come into contact with it are drawn back to God and healed. And your words are powerful because you're a creator with God, co-creator. So you're protected and you can go anywhere. You don't have to worry about it. Well, anyway, I wanted to give that comment. Tia, do you have any comment or response to any of the people who have asked questions or spoken here so far? Because I have some questions for you.
I don't. I think everyone is awesome and really contributed some really good information, especially about the protection.
Okay. Tia, your experience is reverse from most seekers. Seekers look for having a near-death experience. They've learned a lot. They've read books, listened to speakers, and then they come to the experience of it and they say, gee, I would like to experience what these people have experienced. On the other hand, you didn't know anything about any of this and you experienced it. And so it's this reverse, and it's really interesting. And that makes some interesting conclusions drawn from that. Talk about the reality. Some people might say that an out-of-body experience is simply the creation of your mind because that's what you expected or that's what you wanted. You didn't want it. You didn't expect it. It just happened to you. So that's really a significant point. I was going to ask you about the purpose of life, but then you started talking about your podcast. Well, I'm glad you did that. Could you comment more about your podcast? How many have you had, and how many people? Have you ever totaled up the number of people who have watched your podcasts?
Oh, I have about 2 million views. Um, I have almost 18,000 subscribers. There's a lot of people who are looking for some answers to what this really is all about. And so I have amazing guests that share their amazing stories. I've had, I don't know, probably 200, more than 200 guests. I've only just started it in January. I was releasing one video every day, but I can't do that any longer. So I'm doing one a week. But I has each video, each person's story is just it blows up. People are so hungry for answers, for wisdom. I think, with all the atmosphere of the planet right now, people are searching for more. And so they're looking to these near-death experiences and spiritual experiences to find out more about who they are and what they've come here for. Because we're kind of just left grasping at straws right now. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's good. I wish, sometimes the board of Virginia Beach Ions wonders about why our attendance is low, but your attendance is in the millions. So we've got to catch on to what you have.
Well, I think just putting yourself out, I think YouTube is a really good tool to put yourself out there. And I would advertise a lot on Facebook, not advertise, but post my videos on Facebook. And then I found, Facebook groups about near-death experiences, and I would post the videos on those as well. And so it got some exposure. I still am very driven to get this out to as many people as possible, because it's not just for people like me who need healing. I think everyone can benefit from these stories by knowing how powerful they are, for one, but two, not to fear death. There's nothing if you're not gonna be extinct, that you can live a better life, I think, if you don't fear death. And so that's a part of my mission, is helping people to live better lives by not fearing death, living their highest and best life.
Yes. I appreciate the many truths that you shared in your story. For example, you described yourself at one experience as a point of consciousness. We once had a man who was connected with the Monroe Institute. His name was Paul Elder. He was our guest. And he said that at our essence, after we've shed all the other layers of our being, at our essence, we are points of consciousness. And so I like that. I also liked your references to that indicated that we're all one. We're one in consciousness. For example, you with your late husband, your consciousness is shared with him, not only especially now after he's been released from his physical body. And so that is another important truth, that we can receive guidance from transitioned loved ones, angels, or guides. And obviously you've been receiving that guidance that resulted in this podcast, which is fulfilling a purpose of informing and raising the vibration of the world and the people here, so that they'll know that they don't need to fear death. Life continues, and communication with departed loved ones continues. All of that is very important. I noticed you mentioned a time difference in one of your experiences, and that's another truth that people have talked about. In the other realm, time does not exist. It only exists here. And I'm reminded of what Dolores Cannon said, that the humans are the only species in the universe who have devised a way to measure something that does not exist. I would like to see you explore the possibilities of out-of-body travel. Maybe what Dawn shared about sliding out like the magnets would be helpful, but I'm wondering if you could explore other lifetimes in which you developed your spiritual nature to enable you to be receptive to guidance the way you are today. I wonder if you could see if you planned for this in this lifetime, or you and your husband planned for this to take place. I think that's possible. You were once our speaker at Strangers No More, and I asked you about the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, and you weren't aware of it at that time. Did you give any thought to that?
I'm still not. I'm learning, every day. I don't have any definitive experiences of my own that I feel have been extraterrestrial contact, Possibly that the experience where a being got into bed with me and put their arm around me, but I can't say that for sure. So my mind still works very scientifically where I need to have some kind of proof for myself before I will just kind of fall into a belief of something. Um, so I can't say that I have any evidence or beliefs in extraterrestrial uh, beings or contact or anything like that, just because I haven't had that experience.
I may have mentioned a QHHT session to you before. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
Did I give you a reference to somebody who lives near you who could offer that to you?
You did. You gave me a website, and I reached out to one person, and they said they were no longer practicing. And then I kind of just let it fall to the wayside, but I need to get back on that and see if I can contact someone else.
If you would find someone, I'd be willing to do that myself, but you're not supposed to do it only in person. But if you had such an experience, you could go into your own subconscious, contact your higher self, and even contact God. And you could bring a list of questions to the session and get an answer to them. And all those questions about previous lifetimes or the purpose of life or any question that you had, you could get an answer for it. That's what's so amazing about a QHHT session. I became a practitioner this year, 2024. I'm not receiving any requests right now, but I'm available on a donation basis. But I recommend that for you. And I want to continue seeking to help you in that way. You are a marvelous speaker for a person who is shy about speaking. Thank you for sharing all that you did. I want to open the floor to ask anybody who wants to ask another question or make a comment. Bob.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I've never been able to be regressed. And to find out if I was a king or a thief or something like that, or if I was something in another past life.
In the same category.
So I wondered, have you ever been able to be regressed to go into your past lives?
No, I've never done any type of regression, anything. I had a dream one time that I had this beautiful family and um, children and a husband, and I woke up and they didn't exist. It was just a dream, and I mourned them really intensely for a while, and still I think back to them like they were, my real family. But that wasn't like a regression thing. And then my daughter, she used to ask me when she was a little girl if I remember when she was my mom. And I didn't know, I didn't really think about past lives or anything. Like I said, this has been a long journey for me, and I wish I would have been a little more inquisitive with her about like what that meant. But yeah, she used to ask me if I remember when I was her mom, and she did remember a few things later about. I asked her how we had a different dress for each day of the week, and it was like a long kind of like Little House on the Prairie kind of dress, but each one was a different color. But that's all I could get out of her.
I've always felt like it would be helpful to like have that continuity to where you are at this point in time and space to help understand what's going on with you now. If you really had a feeling that, well, it's transitory, you're going to die and come back and be somebody else and have a new lifetime to make this less stressful in your own lifetime. That's why I was thinking be the value of it, but I've been able to get it done. So I think it depends on the practitioner that's able to assist you with that, to find that person. What do you think?
It would be very interesting. That's for sure. I need to look back into that link that Dick sent me and see if I can find someone around here.
I
I'd
will
be
talk,
interested to see what evolves from it.
I will update you on the contacts. Jennifer has a question. Got to unmute first. There you go.
this past week, I've been researching how to meditate and reach your higher self, the other yous and other dimensions to get information. And if you're interested, I can send it to you, but I put all the steps on how to do it on my page. If you're interested, I could send it to you.
Yes, please send it to me, Jennifer. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Right, other comments or questions?
I would
Carol has a question. Let me put the camera on Carol.
maybe to ask this question, but I'm very puzzled about how your husband died. Was he killed? Because you said he was killed. I didn't catch the story. I mean, it may be out of turn even asking you that.
How did your husband die?
He was with my brother, and they were walking on the escalator. This was in 2003, and I left Vegas in 2005, so I don't know if they've done things differently now, but they used to have escalators that would go up and then little bridges, little walkways to go from casino to casino, so you didn't have to cross the actual road, they didn't have to stop traffic. And so he was on this escalator and he was going up and he was kind of laughing around and joking with my brother. And a homeless person took offense to what they were saying. They were talking about sister. And I was my brother's sister. But this homeless person took offense and thought that they were making it a race thing. And he turned around when my husband got off the escalator and he beat him to death. Well, almost to death. He was on life support.
Wow. Horrible. Right, any other comments or questions? I have one. I'm wondering, Tia, if you mentioned that one of your children misses dad. And I wonder if you've ever taken that child to your own psychomantium in your home.
My children definitely miss their father. Like I said, my 3-year-old doesn't really remember him. He wishes that he did. But they don't believe in the same way that I believe. They think that maybe I'm a little off the deep end. They don't really believe that, these communications can happen and such. So, they're not open to that type of experience. So, no.
Right. Cheryl had a question. She put it on chat. She said she wonders if is it your mother? She was an atheist after she had her after-death communication with your late husband. Did that change her perspective?
My mom was Christian
Oh,
all
yeah,
her
she was-
life.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
But my father-in-law, who smelled my husband, I don't think his position, not okay. So I don't believe that he became religious or built up a set of beliefs or anything around that, other than believing that his son still existed. So yes, I think he did change his beliefs about the afterlife or our souls.
All right, Cheryl, I don't know that I asked your question the right way. Do you want to ask the question yourself? She may have stepped away from her computer.
Hi, Dick. Hi, Tia. Sorry. So you talked about your family feeling you needed an intervention, correct?
Yes.
Did I understand that? But if I remember correctly, your mom also had some kind of after death communication with your husband. And I was wondering if that kind of opened her mind at all, or she
No.
still was very set in her beliefs.
Yeah, she's still very set in her beliefs, or she was. She had some visions before this happened as well. When she was pregnant with my sister, many years ago, she had a vision of her dead grandfather. So she's had a couple of visions in her life, but that's not really changed her religious beliefs. She still has her very stringent religious beliefs. Although since I started my podcast, she started watching about near-death experiences, and her mind has opened slightly since. She's still pretty set in her ways, and that's okay. I mean, that's how she's been her whole life, and she's elderly now, and um, but she is less afraid of death now than she was before she started watching my podcast. So that's really the goal, is to get people to be less afraid of death, especially if I can get my mom there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite an accomplishment. The other comment I wanted to say is there's a gentleman, Albert Taylor, who had spoken to the IANDS group many years ago, and he wrote a book called Soul Traveler. And he talks about going out of your body, sort of in a process very similar to what you were describing, but that helps you to do it voluntarily as opposed to that gets foisted upon you kind of thing. I don't know if that would ever be of interest to you.
It would, yeah. Thank you for the suggestion. I've tried many techniques. I've tried the gateway experience with Bob Monroe. I've tried so many things, and I just can't make it happen on my own. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm at the mercy, the whim of whatever God or the universe wants for me, or even maybe just my higher self. I feel like maybe my higher self is saying, nope, we didn't plan that yet. So, because I have earnestly tried, I would really love to be able to do it myself. I haven't had one in many years, although I did have a lucid dream recently, which we had these beautiful aurora borealis way down here in Georgia, and I posted the pictures on Facebook. It was just a couple weeks ago, and I had a lucid dream like that. The morning that happened, it happened at night, and the morning that it happened, I was lucid dreaming when I woke up. So I wonder if that was somehow connected, the energy in the, yeah, on the planet or whatever. But that's really been the latest spiritual experience I had, and the only one in several years. It's kind of calmed down, and I feel like it's more maybe a part of my life now that I'm accepting, and it doesn't seem so out of the box anymore, that I don't recognize them so much, the spiritual experiences anyway. It's like I was saying, I can talk to my husband, I can talk to my dad. I feel like they're here and they communicate with me. So maybe it's just become more normal.
Yeah. Thanks so much for
But
sharing. Oh,
thank you
sorry.
for the suggestion of the book, and I want to write it down. Can you tell me, it was called Soul
Albert
Journey?
Taylor, Soul Traveler.
Soul Traveler. Albert, what was it?
Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So we have so many other questions we could be asking, but I want to ask if anybody has a comment or a question. Carol has a comment, just a minute.
As far as pursuing this in a very adamant way, when you're not really feeling it, I think you're right about that, because I think it will unfold as it should, you know, normally. And when you have curiosity or some kind of question, then it really opens up. So I agree. Did you hear me?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, well,
Louder.
my point is that I agree with your attitude, which is, instead of being gung ho and I'm going to, you know, reveal all of this information for myself and pursue this in a very charged way, I think you're right to let it just unfold naturally.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I thank you for that validation. I appreciate it. It seems it's what feels right to me right now. But I am very connected to guidance in the past year. So I feel like when it's time for me to do something, I'm kind of shown that, or I get this feeling, and then I move on it. And it's like, I know if it's the right move because there's no resistance. It flows so easily. So yes, thank you very much for that.
Tia, do you ever have the feeling that there are entities who would like to communicate through you to people whom you talk with, like being a channel?
Oddly enough, I have felt like that, but I didn't feel like I was ready to do anything like about it. But I have felt like that in the past, yes.
It'd be nice to try it and see how it works.
Yeah, I don't feel called to do anything like that yet, but it's maybe just the feeling that they wanted to was kind of an introduction. And then that will happen in the future. We'll see
As
what
part of
happens. My journey unfolds day by day. Every day I learn new things. I experience new things. I My life changes day by day. I live very fluidly. I don't have any rules.
All right. What have you learned from the many podcasters that you have hosted that you would like to share with this audience?
One of the things I think is important that I hear a lot, I get a lot of questions about on my podcast, is why the experiences are so different. Like Jennifer might have an experience that's completely different than Dick, right? And that's because we are creating our reality. We are literally changing what our visions are, what we see, even on Earth. We all experience things in different ways. We believe different things. So I think it's important for people to know that, especially beginner searchers, beginner seekers, because they might hear one experience and think that's how it is in the afterlife. It's got to be like that. And then they hear someone else, and then they can become disengaged because it's confusing that there's so many different types of experiences or different experiences in general. So it's important to know that everyone is creating the experience that they need to have, or the experience is happening for them in a certain way. We don't need to learn all the same lessons. We haven't all had the same life experiences, so we're not going to all have the same type of life review or whatever it is. That there's so many different ways of thinking, and that's going to be reflected in everyone's near-death experience. So that's one of the most important things I hope to get across to people, because it does become people become disconnected when they become overwhelmed with not knowing why there's so many different experiences.
Okay.
And that so many, almost 100%. I'm gonna go with 100%, right? And I haven't come across any that don't say that there is no judgment, even if there's a hellish experience. Like I said, that may have been an experience that they needed to have for whatever reason, but that people aren't judged and we're accepted and loved for exactly who we are. We're perfect. We were created perfect. There's no way that we could be imperfect because we were created by the creator. It's like this big giant puzzle, and we're all a piece of the puzzle. And if we didn't have the right colors and the right shape to fit into that piece, the puzzle wouldn't look right. So we're all going to be different and unique, and we're all loved and accepted for exactly who we are. There's no judgment. We make mistakes. We learn from those mistakes, but we're not going to be punished eternally for mistakes. You wouldn't punish a baby for eternity if they spill their apple juice on the carpet. That's a mistake that they make. We love them no matter what. We'll clean that up and we'll move on with life. So I feel like that's kind of the same. God, the creator of the universe, looks at us in the same way and says, oh, you made a mistake. Let's clean that up. Now when you tip over your cup on the carpet, it's going to spill the juice out. Don't do it again. So that's my take.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer has her hand up.
I just wanted to say something similar. I feel like all of us that have had experiences are getting a little piece of the puzzle to life, and we're all sharing the information. So, but I wanted to say thank you, and you're a beautiful person and you're doing a great job with your podcast, but I have to leave. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. As
Okay,
always, it was lovely to see you.
you too. Take care. Love you.
Love you.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a comment about the venues. There are many venues for presenting near-death experiences, and the podcast is certainly an effective one for reaching a lot of people. But this venue here, in this room, in which we have maybe 15 people altogether joined together, is also very effective because we've had a great opportunity to ask questions and receive good answers and to discuss things together. That's different from a podcast. Podcast people listen, but they don't have a chance to ask so many questions. So overall, are we ready to say goodbye and have lunch together?
Yeah.
Anybody have a last comment?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tia.
All right.
I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed this very much. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.